You've talked about the need to grow the party. I think everybody worries about growing the party post-election because things are said which may appeal to parts of the base, but they may not appeal to parts of the broader electorate. And you've said things about dismantling the CBC, about bringing CSIS into investigations against activists who may try and impede environmental projects. How do you grow the party when many people find those policies offensive?
Well, I think that every Canadian wants to go to work and they want to work hard. They don't want to find themselves in a position where an activist is telling them they can't get on their job site. And so what I've advocated for with respect to natural resource policy and development is making sure that the law is actually enforced. If you decide that you're going to come and chain yourself to a bobcat on a job site where someone's trying to just do an honest day's work, I think that you actually should be incarcerated. I think that that person has a right to go to work and actually be able to prosper for their family. So I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's common sense. And so the things I've been talking about are common sense, and they appeal to the majority of Canadians, not just the majority of people in the Conservative Party.
Well, let's talk about
how we do well.
Your immigration policies then.
Yes.
I mean, the Conservative Party has won elections in recent years by appealing to the new Canadian vote, yet even members of your own party and leadership candidate rivals like Deepak Oberoi have said that you're adopting policies which are perceived to be anti-immigrant. You said that the test on immigration is anti-Muslim.
Not at all. People may want to depict it that way, but the fact of the matter is that the majority of Canadians agree with what I'm talking about. And, you know, by way of example, I was sitting in the Pan Pacific Hotel about a month and a half ago, waiting for an interview just like this. A Southeast Asian man came running towards me saying, "You're Kellie Leitch." And I said, "Yes, I am." I was a little hesitant. He said, "I came to Canada, I immigrated to Canada in 2004 because of Canadian values. Please keep talking about them. This is why I came to this country. I voted for Justin Trudeau in the last election. I'll never do that again. Because I believe what you're talking about is true." You know, people choose every day to come to this place, to Canada, because of what we represent to the world. And it's those values that I've been talking about. And others may want to depict this in a certain manner, but I can tell you, masses of new Canadians are joining my campaign to help me because they believe exactly in Canadian values and the ones I'm talking about.
Let's burrow down into the policy, the actual policy, rather than the broader issue about values. Do you think the immigration system as it is broken?
I think that there's things that we should be doing differently. And I've talked about the process, about doing face-to-face interviews with each immigrant and refugee coming to Canada.
And does that include visitors, by the way? There are a lot of visitors, and that would slow down the border.
If you're asking about
face-to-face interviews with every visitor?
If you're asking about tourists, we already meet tourists at the border. And am I going to
run a value
at the border for tourists? No, we already talked to them. Albeit that we do vet some people. Roshan V was an excellent example of that. You know, my colleague Michelle Rempel in the House did an outstanding job of making sure that someone who doesn't share Canadian values was not allowed to enter Canada to talk about hate speech. I think that these are important people to make sure that we're identifying and not allowing in the country.
So your values test, you have 3 questions which essentially ask, do you respect women? Well, maybe you could characterize them rather than me characterize them, the 3 questions.
Well,
because I think they're important.
We've been pushed to put forward some questions, and yes, are men and women equal? Do you believe that you should be allowed to worship who you wish or no one? Do you believe that you should be able to love who you wish? You know, we have a Canadian way.
But you also, there was a question about, do you know you have to work hard because things won't be handed to you on a plate? Now, Jason Kenney looked at a values test, and he looked at Australia and he looked at the Netherlands and he dismissed it as unenforceable. And in fact, his chief of staff said that it would be like accepting the terms of usage on a computer program, an empty exercise. I mean, it would seem to me that anybody who gets that test would just say, yes, I agree with all 3 things that you've just said, and it's unenforceable. How do you respond to that?
Well, as I say, I'm talking also about doing face-to-face interviews to do this. So tell me this. You fill out an application form and you send it in. You filled out your resume. Did you then have an interview for your job? Or did you just show up and take over a desk? When we meet someone face-to-face, we learn more about them. by way of example, one example that's been given to me, and it is true. Someone applies to come to Canada. They say they're a tool and die maker. Obviously use their hands, they're a laborer. They show up to the interview and they're looking at the person and their hands are as pristine as mine. Do you think they actually were telling the truth on their resume and what they on their application?
So really what you're talking about is about the integrity of the system, not about the values of the people.
No, I think that
because really what you're saying is that the system, it seems to be, as it works right now, seems to work quite well. I mean, the employment rate among incoming foreign workers is higher than among native-born Canadians. So what you're suggesting, it seems to me, is not about values, but about the integrity of the system.
What I've talked about is two things. One is face-to-face interviews, and also in those interviews asking questions about our Canadian values and people accepting them. And I don't think it's intolerant for us to ask individuals to accept to become part of the Canadian family. And I think it's best that we actually meet them face-to-face to do that.